Welcome everyone to our Human Relations Commission meeting for Thursday, November 13th. We've got a really interesting agenda today, so thank you to all the folks who have made it to join us. We will begin by taking a roll call. We will begin over here with Commissioner Kazi.
Present.
Commissioner Barr.
Here.
Vice Chair Kraus.
Here.
Commissioner Ansari. Here. Great. And then with that, I think that's our, one more?
Well, Commissioner Shea.
Oh, Commissioner Shea, not here.
And Commissioner
Carnum. And Commissioner Stimler here.
So you have 5 present, you do have a quorum.
Great. And with that, I do really want to welcome Commissioner Ansari to the commission. We are very happy to have you. Would you like to just share a little bit about yourself before we begin?
Okay, I've been living in Palo Alto.
Sorry.
Get the red.
There we go.
For the recording.
Okay. All right. My name is Salwa Ansari. I've been in Palo Alto for about 16 years. My husband's been here for much longer. And I have 2 children in the district, Walter Hayes and Green. I work in finance. I have a long history in nonprofit work as well. And I know many of you. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
And with that, we'll move to public comment for items not on the agenda.
I don't see any hands raised online and no one in chambers.
Fantastic. And we will, any agenda changes, requests, or deletions? Did you have something, Vice Chair? Oh, yeah, okay. Approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Thank you. Can I get that seconded?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And then we will vote on the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Ansari?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus?
Aye.
Commissioner Barr?
Aye.
Commissioner Kazi?
Aye.
Commissioner Stimler? Aye.
Chair, just a reminder that since it's an action item, we need to see if anybody has public comment.
Oh, on the approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments on the approval of the minutes? None. Okay.
No.
Great. Then we will move on to our first business item of the day, which I will hand over to Commissioner Kraus to introduce.
Thank you all for coming. We have friends and we have extended family in this auditorium today. The topic is the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Young Child Tax Credit. These are enormous programs that will put cash on the table for our low income, for our seniors, for our unhoused, and particularly for our RV dwellers, who are very near and dear to my heart. To give you an idea of how big this cash is, in 2021, which are the most recent numbers that we have, in California, 1.24 billion was money put back into the pockets of working families and individuals. 6.59 million is the total number of people who benefited from the California EITC. That included almost 2 million children. So in these times of scarcity, in which federal programs are being rolled back, we as a commission wanted to bring this forward in terms of information so we can have a full plate and a toolbox to go forward. Now, the IRS have certain stipulations, and it's called a Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, VITA, that's very critical to qualify to become a tax processor. You'll hear us talk about this. Now, I want to welcome our two speakers. We've got two of the experts in this field, and it's an honor to have you and to be able to hear your words of wisdom. Amy Everett is the president of the Golden State Opportunity. She's been there since 2019. She's architected many of these programs, and we can't wait to hear about what you've done, what we can do, and how we can move forward. Sally Lieber is the vice chair of the California Board of Equalization. She held an earlier information hearing on this topic with many of the same speakers, so that we begin to understand where the cash is that's available to working families, and particularly for children. Now, just so you understand, and then I'll shut up, there's federal programs and there's California programs. At this point in time, the federal programs haven't been messed with too much. We're waiting and holding our breath. But the California programs, those numbers of over $1 billion are the California program. This is not trivial. So with that, Amy, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Commissioner Kraus, and thank you all for having us here tonight. My name is Amy Everett, and I'm the president of Golden State Opportunity. GSO is a statewide nonprofit that works to create financial security for low-income workers so they can all thrive and prosper. Next. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the California Earned Income Tax. Let me talk about GSO for one more second. This is our impact just in 2025. We have led the statewide efforts that resulted in over 5.5 million people claiming over $1.4 billion this year. It's a record amount. GSO specifically helped people claim $27 million that went back into people's pockets. This is money they've already earned. Our CalIITCforme.org website is one of the most comprehensive tax websites for low-income workers. It receives more than 1 million web visits every year and 11 million media impressions. We have seen an increase over the last year of a new program that we pioneered 2 years ago, the Foster Youth Tax Credit. We create our materials in 14 different languages, including full websites in those languages. And we do this work in partnership with over 40 community-based organizations throughout the state. They help us do education and outreach, free tax prep, and they help us reach our I-10 community as well. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about tax credits. It is really important to understand that a tax credit is something that you have already earned in this case, and that it whatever you don't owe, you get back. They are fully refundable. They're not loans, they're not part of public benefits, they're not public charge. So I sort of just went through that. Why don't we go to the next one? So as Michelle mentioned, there are two kinds of credits. There is a state tax credits. This is available to you if you have an I-10 number or Social Security number. And it makes you eligible for the California Earned Income Tax Credit, the Young Child Tax Credit, or the Foster Youth Tax Credit. You can be 18 or over and still qualify. For the federal tax credits, you have to have a Social Security number, and you have to be between the ages of 25 and 64. That makes no sense, but that is our federal law right now. We're working to change it. To the next one. Again, we have a calculator, and what sets this calculator apart from others is that it is in multiple languages, and it will calculate both your state and your federal. When we are trying to reach low-income workers, when you say things like finances and money and free, they get very suspicious. This has been one of our most effective tools to show them what they will get back. And when that number is big enough, they come in to get their free tax prep. Next. So let me dive in before I go to this. Let me talk a little bit about Santa Clara County and what is at stake with the tax credits. In Santa Clara County, between 60 and 70,000 households claimed the federal EITC for a total of between 120 and 150 million dollars. In the Cali ITC, which the Cali ITC is capped at 32,000. If you make over $32,000, you do not qualify. So if you think about what it means to be earning $32,000 in Santa Clara County, when you get an average return back of $2,500, it is a significant amount for you to meet your basic needs. We know that when people get the tax credits, they spend it locally within 2 miles of their home. We know that they are spending it on spending down debt and buying groceries and putting gas in their car and getting their cars fixed and doing nice things for their children, buying new shoes, buying a basketball, signing them up for after-school sports. And in addition to that, something important to know about the earned income tax credit, both at the state and federal level, is that it's an economic mobilizer. When they spend, every dollar that is spent of an EITC refund generates $1.58 to $2 of economic activity, which in the case of California last year put $56 million back into local economic activity. So back to Santa Clara, the Cali ITC with that income cap of 32,000, between 50 to 60,000 people claimed it, which put $15 to $20 million back into the local economy here in Santa Clara. Of the young child tax credit, and so what this means is that if you have a child who is 6 or under, you can qualify for up to $1,000 tax credit. And the nice thing about the young child tax credit is that you have to earn $0. So with all the others, you have to earn at least $1 or more for the federal. But for the young child tax credit here in California, it is a tax credit for having a child under 6 and your income being under 32,000. And here, between 12 to 15,000 households claimed it and put $12 to $15 million back in their pockets. Now, the challenge and some of the work that Golden State Opportunity does is that not everybody is filing their taxes and claiming the credits. Here in Santa Clara, it is estimated that there are 10 to 15,000 households that are not claiming their credits, which leaves about $20 to $30 million on the table between the California and the federal credits. So one of the things that we do at Golden State Opportunity is we help people file their taxes for free. In 2025, we saved low-income workers about $6 million because they didn't have to spend it on a tax preparer. This is a program that Michelle was talking about, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. It's been a program that's been done through the IRS for decades, and it is designed to help people not have to spend money to get their taxes done. We have clinics, we have thousands of clinics throughout the state every tax season. We're gearing up right now. And it relies on one part of the program is you have to recruit your own volunteers and you have to be trained. Now, I just went through the training. It took me 5 years. You should all know that my parents are accountants and I was born on April 15th and I was terrified of this training. But it actually was really simple and I learned a lot, and then it allowed me to go to these tax clinics that we are helping to host and actually sit down across from people and help them get their taxes done. They are simple taxes. Any of us who have done our taxes can help somebody else do their taxes. And so recruiting volunteers is a huge part of this program, and I think if this commission wanted to put something out that recruited or told people about this opportunity, we are in a time where people are looking for community and ways to give back, and there is really nothing more amazing than sitting across from somebody and letting them know that they got a refund of $300 or $3,000, or in the case of one woman who had 3 kids and hadn't filed her taxes in 3 years, she received a tax refund of $30,000, which when you make under $32,000 a year is a life-changing amount of money. So other things about the volunteer income tax program is different nonprofit organizations can run them. It takes about 2 years to become IRS certified, and we help with that process. We have technical assistance available for the site coordination and the coordination with the IRS, and we give grants. These Community Connect organizations that I talked about all receive grants from Golden State Opportunity to help them do their free tax prep, do their outreach, and recruit volunteers. Last year, I think we recruited about 770 volunteers. This year, we have a goal of 1,000. So why does this matter? Like, why are we talking about it at the Human Rights Commission? Because I think we all are here because we know that housing is a human right. We know that food is a human right. We know that basic necessities are human rights. In Santa Clara, the minimum wage here is $18.20. And if you work 52 weeks, 40 hours a week, you're going to earn $37,900. The average rent in Santa Clara is $3,500. So you're spending 110% of your pay on rent, which obviously makes no sense because you can't. So this money that comes to people once a year, one of our clients said to me, Christmas isn't in December, it's in April when we get our refund. And so that is, I think, one of the main reasons we're here. The challenges to financial stability for Californians, we're going to hear, we've been talking about affordability for 6 years. I think a lot of other people are going to start talking about affordability, and we have to be very real about what that means. It means we have rents and we have incomes that are just completely disproportionate. We have a cost of living that is not supported by working hard. Working hard is not paying off the way it once did. So a couple of the challenges that we face, affordability, we all know the cost of living is going up. We know inflation is impacting that. We know that the safety net eligibility is based on outdated measures. So for food stamps, which has been in the news a lot lately, you have to qualify at the poverty federal level, which if you're a two-person family, that's about $33,000. And that is not a livable wage, and it's estimated that the cost to raise a child is $13,000 to $18,000 and higher here. So the math is just not adding up for people who are working hard and doing things right. They still can't afford basic necessities, and then we make it really hard to access. It is not easy to get your taxes done. We try to make it as easy as possible. We go to where people are, but there are complex barriers to accessing various other public benefits like food stamps or Section 8 housing. There is not enough to go around, and the system is onerous. So we're asking people who are working 2 jobs to take time off of those jobs to go and fill out a Byzantine structure. If you want to go to the next slide. So I hope that this has illustrated a little bit about where tax credits come into the system of fighting poverty in general, and how it is something that has been one of the most powerful cash transfers in California and America it's only been around in California for 10 years. It's a program that started at the federal level in 1975, and it was designed by Richard Nixon because they noticed they were taxing people into poverty. And so the earned income tax credit was designed to help people stay above the poverty line. Times have changed. It is now a tool to manage poverty. It is not ending it. We need much better solutions until we have that moment. This is one of the most amazing programs that I think exists, that is really, people depend on this money to make ends meet. Thank you very much for your time.
Sally?
Thank you so much. Well, I'm so honored to be here tonight and to be speaking with Amy Everett. Last year, we held the first public hearing that had ever been held at the Franchise Tax Board on the subject of work assets and the safety net, all of which have become much more pressing and relevant since that time. And as Commissioner Kraus mentioned, I currently serve on the State Board of Equalization. I'm also a former member of the State Assembly for 3 terms, and I think most people know me as a community organizer. I do represent 19 counties currently, of which Santa Clara County is one. My district on the BOE goes from the Oregon border down the coast to the LA County line. So it takes in rural California, urban California, suburban California, and deals very much with the economic lives of people in our state. And as I've been thinking about the meeting tonight, I really want to urge you as agents of the city and as influencers of the city council and of the community organizations to look at Palo Alto, even more than you already have, is not just the residents, but the people who are the support workers who are essential to this community working. And I think that there's a very strong role that the city and the HRC can play in terms of making assets available to people, and that it is just so critical right now. I wanted to mention that about a third of the households in Santa Clara County have an annual income of less than $100,000 and would not be able to afford a two-bedroom apartment. So this is why we see high levels of crowding in apartments, multiple families living in a one-bedroom or even a studio apartment. And that particularly takes a toll on children. And I wanted to mention some of the occupations that are absolutely essential to our communities, but are very underpaid in California. Healthcare support earns on average $40,280. So not able to afford an apartment. Food preparation and service, $40,300. Building and grounds cleaning and maintenance, $44,510. Sales related, $59,650. So you see the very large gap that exists for so many families. And Amy talked about what I tend to think about, and I think there's a book titled this, is the administrative burden that working families go through, where the powers that be in government have determined that they will get this patch and that patch put on them, but only if they go to this office and that office, usually during a work day, and separated by many miles, taking extra transportation costs. So helping to build up assets through what's available in terms of tax credits are very powerful, because the person only needs to bring their tax information to a VITA clinic and get it processed. And hearing Amy talk about a family with 3 children and a single mother getting back $30,000 is absolutely spine-tingling for me, because that is a legacy amount of money that family could not get in other ways. And California does not count the earned income tax credit against people when they qualify for other programs. And that's so very important, because we do want people to avail themselves of all of the programs that they are eligible for. But again, I want to urge this commission to really elevate the concern for people who are working in the community. We know that we can't have a community if our grocery stores are not stocked. We can't have a community where there are not adequate people to work in the laundry at the hospital, to be part of the army of support workers that are working in all of these absolutely essential functions. And so I want to encourage you on that score, and really encourage the city to look at the contracts that are out, the labor contracts, and ensure that those folks have access to information about getting the tax credits that they are eligible for. And look at, are the RV dwellers, the vehicle dwellers, are they able to file for free and get the money that they are owed? And that's very, very important. We have so many people in California who do not file because they really feel like their income is so low that they won't get anything back. And as a state, we're leaving a huge amount of money on the table. And I really see strengthening the assets that families have, and as a group, as society writ large, showing that we have care for people in the community who feel so unseen is a double bottom line, at least. And it's particularly magnified when there are children in the home, and particularly magnified right now where there are so many concerns for families who have mixed status in terms of immigration status and are really receding further and further into the shadows. It's a powerful thing to have a community say, we care about you, we want you to be here, we want you to be able to have the necessities of life. And so I just so much appreciate this commission looking at this and hopefully being that magnification. I don't think I would be telling any stories out of school right now, but Golden State Opportunity had a very important piece of legislation to increase the state level grant in terms of earned income tax credit. And that measure didn't get through this year. It will be back. And there are so few instances in which there are cities and counties that sign on in support of such a measure that Palo Alto can disproportionately move the needle by supporting bills that support the building of assets and the rebuilding of a safety net that is strong enough for families in our community. So I would urge you on that line as well. Thank you so much.
What's the number on that bill? Was it AB or SB?
Yeah, it was AB, it will be It will be reintroduced under a new bill number in the coming session. It died in committee. So it was a wonderful thing in that we had an enormous amount of co-sponsors, but it died in that appropriation, opaque, not transparent way. And the reason was because, there's an anticipated shortfall in the budget, and people are concerned about that. But one of the magical things about the Earned Income Tax Credit is that it is unrestricted money. There are no strings attached to that check when you get it. And people can make up their minds for themselves how they need to pay for things. So with the impending healthcare crisis, people will have money through the Cali ITC to figure out how they want to pay for things so that they have money to take their kid to the doctor. It doesn't tell people what to do. It's the only unrestricted cash people receive. So that's why it's a super powerful and really important mechanism as these other doors are closing for people to open wider the one that is working.
My concern is for seniors, and I wasn't too clear as to where the seniors fit in terms of federal and state. I will let you know that my Social Security is going up this year 2 7/8%. I believe rent's going up more than that. I don't rent, but 40% of seniors in the community do rent. And I don't know if you ever read it was called the CASOA, Community Assessment Survey of Older Adults, that Avenidas contracted for 2 years after the pandemic. And surprise, surprise, the biggest concern for seniors is affordable housing. So what's the role of this for seniors in terms of state versus federal?
So the first thing to know is that the fastest growing sector of people living in poverty are senior women, and the fastest growing community of unhoused people are seniors over 55. So there is a growing and not going away challenge for seniors. At the state level, the Cali ITC, seniors can access it as well. If you are and this is, our bill was to make the minimum $300. Right now, the minimum can be like $2. And the reason that we want that is because there are a lot of people who are single or no longer have families. And so the calculation, the algorithm doesn't deliver a lot of money to folks, but most of the people are seniors who are single, who are individuals, who are not receiving the full amount that other people are receiving. The federal level, and this should be a real problem for everybody. In 1975, when the EITC was passed, it was only for people who were aged 25 to 64. There was a belief then, which I don't think was borne out by any data, and it certainly isn't true today, that 18 to 24-year-olds are taken care of in college or with their families or something, and that for seniors, they will be getting Social Security. We all know seniors are still working well past 65, but they no longer qualify for the federal earned income tax credit. We had a bill carried by Judy Chu called Fix the EITC, and it was the EITC Age Parity Act to include both young adults and older adults in the EITC, but it has not passed.
And I would just add on to that, I see it as a crisis of care within the community. If you're talking about someone has to earn $125,000 to afford a two-bedroom apartment, and caregivers are earning $40,000 to $44,000 a year, I think that impacts so greatly on those of us who are seniors. And when I looked at trying to get home care for my mom here, I called around to the different agencies, and I was told, well, if you sign up now, within several months, we can get you 2 to 3 hours per day of care. And that's how short we are of caregivers. My mom, unfortunately, needed 24-hour-a-day supervision. And so I was not able to bring her here to live with me because I simply couldn't get the care. And so many families are in that situation. And they're in that situation in terms of children who are too young yet to go to transitional kindergarten, and seniors. And many people are in the sandwich generation where they're working through both of those scenarios within their family. And the real gutting out of the ability of caregivers to be in our community is going to impact us greatly in the years ahead, because it's very fragile right now, but it's going to be a bubble that bursts at some point, and no one will be able to get care except for the highest dollar.
I would just notice that we do have 2 city council members in the room, and the city council has identified what's referred to as parking lot C as a potential site. That's the one that's actually right next to Avenidas on Ramona Street, as a potential site for low-income housing, and that would seem to make perfect sense to focus on low-income housing for seniors if that ever comes to pass. Okay, thank you very much.
John, just so you know, I had extensive conversations with Avenidas, and they are very interested in making sure they're a Vita going forward, because they very much want to engage at this level. For seniors, and particularly Christina is interested in low-income adult population.
I know we didn't have a formal, can we go to questions? I know we didn't have.
Can we go to questions?
Yes, there we go, okay. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I think this is incredibly meaningful. It's always really nice when we can have a really solution-oriented policy in front of us. I have 2 questions for you. One, tell me about, you told me the story of single mother, 3 kids that never filed. Paint us more of a picture of the type of people you meet and what is the barrier of, had they never filed before, did they not know what to do? That's my first question.
Thank you for doing them one at a time. There are 2 profiles of who we see the most in claiming the Cali ITC. One is a young, so under 35, Latina head of household, single head of household. The other are seniors. But the barriers, we've done extensive focus groups about why do people come or why do they not. One, there's misinformation that if you make too little money, you don't have to file your tax. That's not misinformation. If you don't make enough money, you don't have to file your taxes. But you are leaving money on the table then. And that is the piece that we're trying to solve for. So that is one, is that people just don't know that money's on the table. Two, they don't believe it. As I said earlier, right, you say free money, there is money waiting for you. They're very suspicious of government. They're very suspicious. So when they get a letter, from the FTB saying, we have this program, I mean, I know what I do with a letter from the FTB. It sits on my desk for quite a while till I'm brave enough to open it, and then it just sort of says something very benign. But that is it, is that there's this like fear of what does this mean? I don't want to get on people's radar. So we do a lot of work with ITIN holders. So individual tax identification numbers, these are people who don't have social security numbers, but in fact are working here in our communities, and they want to pay their taxes, and they want to get on the road to citizenship. Right now, that program, we've seen a huge fall off in that program over the last year for obvious reasons. But really, everybody, their families, and, if I'm going to look around here, they're probably us if we had one major medical expense that we couldn't afford. I mean, these are our neighbors. These are people that we know who qualify or have lost income. So, we see the gamut of people. But education and knowing about it is the number one, is our number one goal, is to make sure they know about it, and then we can get them the free prep.
Good to know, good to know. Next question is, what do you find is the best way to reach people? What would be this is going to be a multi-part question, but what is the best way to reach people? What do you find cities can do to help? And I'm assuming that you have a need for volunteers.
Yeah, thank you for those great questions. So the best way to reach people is super locally. We have found that, we used to do large statewide campaigns, and we weren't getting the results from them that we needed. And when we started geo-targeting our text campaign, our social media campaigns, when we could text people and say, we have a bus that is in your neighborhood next week, make an appointment, that's when people were like, it's at a place that we use these trusted messenger, these trusted community-based organizations. They don't know Golden State Opportunity. They know that community-based organization that is in their community, of their community, speaks in their language, speaks in their is culturally competent for them, and it's there. So that is when we see the biggest uptake, is when we can say, we are here in your community, come. And we reach them in all different ways. So social media, texting, canvassing, we go door to door. We also do a campaign with a lot of elected officials at the state level. We have campaigns called Tacos and Taxes, so we feed people. And just like we all know, when you put food out, people come. And so we have these events where we have elected officials at the state level, and you are all welcome. We will make sure you are all invited to our next ones that are here in Redwood City and throughout Silicon Valley. But the local elected officials also do the outreach. They send letters out through their newsletters or through their email list to their members, and you are trusted messengers. Agencies that don't know who they are not, but you as representatives are. And so those are some of the multiple ways that we reach people. Community-based organizations, texting, et cetera. Now, what can cities do to help? I would really encourage you to put something on your website, or if you have an email list, is to encourage people to become VITA volunteers. You can go to our website. We're going to have a huge training section this year. And it's really easy. I did it. It's an 8-hour training in total. You get trained, you get certified, and then you can show up and help people. And that's the most rewarding thing. So letting people know that those volunteer opportunities are there, or just making sure that in your communications with the community that you're letting them know about free tax prep, about the earned income tax credit and what's at stake for them. We have flyers that you can just download and utilize, and it's all tested messaging that we have used, and it's also, as we said, in 14 different languages. And if you have another language that we haven't covered, let us know, because we'll do it.
I have follow-up questions kind of along the same lines as Commissioner Causey, so I'll add mine in here. I guess I'm so happy that this is free money and it's actionable and there's steps to take it. Question, do you know where a Palo Alto resident, perhaps one of our insecurely housed residents, would be able to go at the moment? Do you know if there's a VITA around here?
I know that United Way Bay Area provides clinics. I don't know how extensive they are here in Santa Clara, but if you go to the caliitcforme.org website, we have a list, a locator for all the VITA programs throughout the state. It's not up and running yet because it isn't, we're in the prepping stage and everybody's figuring everything out, but it will be live in January, late January, and that's when you go to that website and you'll be able to find places that are available to people. Sorry, you can also do it online. We have partnered with Code for America to be a part of their online Get Your Refund. And so we have support systems that will help people do it from their libraries, their homes, their community centers, so they can also do it online.
Do you need a center, or is this something that, like, if local social workers who are already working with our unhoused populations were to do an 8-hour training, can they go knocking on doors with tax forms in their hands? I'm just curious if there's.
I sort of
if
wish I
it's-
could say
yeah.
yes to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do wish I could say yes to that, but the answer is no. And the reason for that is that the VITA program has really strict adherence to the IRS rules. And so you have to follow those rules. But I will share with you that we did a pilot project in Texas where we just hired an accounting firm, and we just said, here are the hours, show up. And we paid the accounting firm so that nobody else did. And we kind of did that. Where we just went door to door and told people about it, and had, in local churches, we had centers people could come to.
Do you have to have so even if I do let's just say I'm a social worker and I do the training, you still have to have some sort of certified place where people go to
Well,
do?
what it is that you can do somebody's taxes, but you need a system for the quality assurance. So when you do the taxes, that's great, awesome. They need to go get reviewed by somebody else, and then they need to go to a third party, and then it goes back to the tax payer or tax filer to sign it. That's why you need a system.
That's probably a good idea, because I
Yeah.
shouldn't be going door to door filing people's taxes.
And I will share with you what you asked, why do people not do it? Fraud. A lot of people are afraid of fraud. You say free tax prep, and they're like, I don't want to go there. We have tested all the different language, and the language that works the most is IRS-trained volunteers will help you do your taxes. Free tax prep, not interested. They don't believe it. And there's a real adherence to people wanting to pay for it. They feel like if I pay for it, I can, it's more quality, I can go back to them. But we have found that paid preparers are not claiming these credits for them at the same level that VITA is, because they say, oh, it's going to cost you more if we fill out the form, et cetera. And so we don't like the paid preparers, but our filers like the paid preparers.
And then one more question just about the Get Your Refund Code for America. So can someone, if they have access to a computer, can they file it themselves? I mean, I guess
Absolutely.
folks can do this already themselves if they want to file. And what about like a TurboTax? Like when I was a grad student, I got like the free version of TurboTax. Does that work for this as well?
Well, there's a little history here where there used to be something called Free File, and it is where all the major paid for-profit tax preparing agencies like TurboTax, like H&R Block and others, got together with the state, with the government, and said, don't offer free tax, don't allow people to do their taxes for free, we'll do it. Well, that system ended about 2 years ago because they kept upselling. The spirit of it was not fulfilled. Then we have this amazing program, also done with Code for America, called Direct File at the federal level. California was one of the first states to participate in it, where you could file your taxes online for free at the IRS. And it had, and imagine this at the federal government level, like an 85, 90% approval rating. People appreciated it, it worked for them. And the big bill that just happened cut that funding and it's no longer available. So people are trying to go back to those paid preparers and say, let private industry do this. The problem with private industry is that they are
They
upselling
upsell
people.
you, yeah.
So.
A point of information, I, in preparation, briefed many of our service providers, our NGOs, and what I'm hoping is that we have some in the audience right now, and that you'll continue to have conversations, because this is money on the table for low-income, unhoused seniors. Please continue the conversation.
And is the thing to do for a service organization who's interested in sponsoring or helping the local residents is to reach out to your organization? Is that the best way to start?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody to contact us we have our numbers up on the website. We are always looking for new partners. We want to continue to build out the VITA program and reach more and more people.
Awesome, thank you.
I hate to go out on this note, but I was kind of just curious while you were talking, how much do you have to convince people that this is a legitimate service?
It's like a lot of things, which is word of mouth is one of the most effective ways. And so even though there are folks who we reach through our texting program and our social media program, there's nothing like that network and that community through the community-based organizations that compels people to feel comfortable. Or their friend says, I went there and had it done. Why are you paying $200 to get your taxes done? Go here. It was great. And you can go back to these places too and follow up with questions or challenges.
I have one just similar follow-up question, which is, I imagine now, these are both tax credits available to anyone who pays taxes regardless of immigration status? No.
No. Only the California income tax credit is available to ITIN holders.
Okay.
The federal government has actually just further constricted it. So the earned income tax credit was never available to ITIN holders.
Okay.
The child tax credit was available to children who had a social security number, but who may have had parents who had ITIN numbers. That's no longer available to them. So I think
California one is still
the
available.
California one is still available. We should be really proud that we have one of the most comprehensive and inclusive state EITCs in the country.
The reason I bring it up is in a minute, we're going to talk about a Know Your Rights program that we'll be sponsoring. So that might be one of the type of places where we could share that message. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, new to this. So your biggest problem is not having enough volunteers, or is it convincing people to participate in the program?
Every year, we have to turn people away because we don't have enough volunteers.
Do you ever have a time where you have enough volunteers and not enough people to help?
No.
No, that doesn't happen. Okay.
No, I mean, even though there are people who are leaving money on the table and they have not come in, for the people who do know about it, they know about it and they want to access it. We just don't always have enough volunteers. I will share with you, last year we were doing a Tacos and Taxes in Redwood City with Assemblymember Pappen. There was a line starting at 8 a.m. We didn't open until 10. There was a line out the door from people. And they could only have the capacity to do 34 taxes. And we had to turn away probably 50 to 75 people who had been there waiting. It was the most heartbreaking thing I had experienced in this work, because most of the time we do an appointment system, so you only show up if you have an appointment. And this was a walk-in situation. So there are more people who want to get their taxes done than we have tax preparers. I will share that I'm making both of my teenagers become VITA certified this year, so they can begin their journey. So there is no age limit on being a volunteer tax assistant.
Does the training, so you said it takes 8 hours? Can it be done in can you have a training party and have 50 people in the room and make it really fun, or is it not like that?
So we can do it in a lot of different ways. So we can do it as a webinar. So you do it like for 4 hours, 2 days. You can break it up and do it too. There's another one that we have coming up that's 2 hours over 4 or 5 days. So we do, and then we do in-person ones. So there's a whole, we're trying to design one that's specific to high school students. And I want to sort of approach a tech firm, if anybody knows one, to help us gamify it and make it really fun to learn how to do it, because it's not rocket science. It's fill in the blanks, get the information, fill in the blanks. But it's super powerful and it's super rewarding.
Just a suggestion, at Stanford University, the Haas Center for Public Service encourages and organizes undergraduate students to get involved in community affairs. You might want to reach out to the Haas Center, and if a student comes in as a freshman and they're trained, then you've got to prepare for 3 more years. So the Haas Center for Public Service.
And in closing, words of wisdom from someone who has sat on the FTB, Sally. I think it's the first hearing of its type that was ever done on the earned income tax credit with academics, with practitioners, with NGOs. What came out of that, or how do you go forward?
Yeah, what came out of that was really setting the table for future action at the FTB to look at the financial well-being of Californians as an integral part of how that agency functions, and also to elevate the essential nature of the tax credits. I think even more relevant than that experience was to me was serving on a local city council and seeing how powerful activism on the boards, commissions, and council can be. So often when a city looks at their legislative priorities, they kind of take the booklet from the League of California Cities and say, this is what we want as far as our lobbying efforts in Sacramento. But it would be so powerful to have more cities saying, we want to be notified about measures to support the economic well-being of people who live or work in Palo Alto, because we're integrally connected here. We cannot have a successful community without our support workers being able to live economically. It used to be different before the Central Valley was as economically developed as it is right now. People would live there and make the long trek into Santa Clara County to fulfill essential jobs. Now there are so many of those essential jobs in the Central Valley that people can avoid a 5-hour commute back and forth every day and simply live and work in Stockton or Fresno or wherever. And so it's essential that we look at the well-being and the viability of people coming to work here. So thank you so much for having us tonight.
Excuse me, we also have, there is time for public comment, so I would like to welcome any of our attendees online or in the audience. It's going to be a little different this time, and if you would like to ask a question, panelists are available to respond, which I know is not how we usually do things, but also no pressure, but wanted to give you the opportunity.
So if you're online, you can raise your virtual hand, or if you're in person, you can just walk up to our little podium there. I think we're good.
I want to thank you for being here. And I was hoping some of our service vendors might have some questions, but if they don't, thank you.
And thank you. I really appreciate your interest in this topic, and there's so much to do. And I think I heard a lot of like, this is a solution, and it really is. And the more people who know about it, the better off we're all going to be. Oh, thank you. Thank you for having us.
So it looks like we do have a hand. So I'll wait for my colleague to get up the clock. Okay, Deborah, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Hello, this is Deborah Grant, Executive Director at La Comida. And I wanted to ask if it's possible for someone from either or both of the organizations to come and speak. We have upwards of 200, sometimes 300 seniors each day that come for a hot, nutritious, healthy lunch to one of our 2 locations. And I think this would be valuable information for them to have, and if it would be possible for someone to come and share this information in a kind of a free speaking opportunity, not necessarily calling anyone out, because we have a lot of folks who are, as you said, suspicious of government, and especially at this point in time. But there are a lot of people who come every single day, and I suspect we have people who would really benefit from this.
Yes. Please reach out at Golden State Opportunity. We would love to come and talk with your community and let them know about the free tax prep and about the tax credits that are available and the safety measures that are involved in the privacy of data.
Deborah, feel free just to reach out to me and I can do the connection. Okay, I don't see any other hands, Chair.
Thank you so much. Yeah, what can be better than free money? We just have to figure out how to get there. So this has been one of our more fun topics. So thanks so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And as you can see already, the community is listening and thinking about, oh, how can we make this happen? I think the point about volunteers, actually, I think we have a wealth of folks here who would also be excellent volunteers. We have a very ambitious high school population, and we have a very large retiree population. And so thinking through how we can connect those with your organization would be really great.
Thank you.
Great, and next on our agenda is the Palo Alto Mediation Program, near and dear to my heart. Please join us, and if you need a moment to put up your presentation, do they need a minute? No, okay, we're good to go. Welcome, everyone. If you could take a moment to introduce yourselves and then go ahead with your presentation, that would be great.
Press the red button in the middle, each separately when you actually speak, because it decreases the volume if we all do it at once.
Go ahead, Gretchen. Okay, I'm Gretchen Worley. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Palo Alto Mediation Program. I've been with the program about 4 years. I'm a retired college professor, and I've lived in Palo Alto for over 40 years.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Jill Barsley. I'm the other co-chair right now with Gretchen. I've been with the Palo Alto Mediation Program for more than 20 years now. This is my second stint as co-chair. I guess if you stay around long enough, the role comes back. My background is international human resources. So I find now that I'm retired, mediation is a really great way to continue the skills that I learned when I was working.
I'm Carol Kahn. I'm the Executive Director at Project Sentinel. We administer the Palo Alto Mediation Program and have for over a decade. And it's a pleasure always to work very closely with the co-chairs. We have probably 14, 15 mediators who are active, and we are excited to be here and tell you more about it.
So the Palo Alto Mediation Program is a community service, and our mission is to provide free mediation and dispute resolution services to the Palo Alto and Stanford communities. We operate under the auspices of the Human Relations Commission. One of the requirements of our relationship with you is that we attend one of your meetings once a year, and we provide statistics of our activities in the previous year and talk about some of our accomplishments that we're proud of. Project Sentinel administers the program, as Carol said. So the program's actually been around for around 30 years, and it actually grew out initially of the HRC, who did the work to manage the mainly landlord-tenant disputes at that time. And then it became apparent that there were other types of disputes within the community, mainly neighbor-neighbor. And so it was felt that the Palo Alto needed a specific organization just focused on dispute resolution, which is now the Palo Alto Mediation Program. So conflict is unfortunately inevitable. Combat is optional. Our program provides the option to try and hopefully reduce combat.
So who are we as the mediators? What's on the screen is what we all do to become mediators. But first I want to say we currently have 16 mediators. 13 are currently active, 3 are emeritus. We have 13 women and 3 men. We also have 5 of those mediators who also are court mediators in San Jose. And as Jill said, we have people who've been here a long time that really have a lot of experience. So we have 5 of them, of our mediators, who've been here over 25 years. We have another 6 who've been here 10 and 15. And then the rest of us are newbies. And what's really interesting is we come from very diverse backgrounds. We come from businesses, maybe that's tech, maybe that's nonprofits. We also come from some academic fields like sociology, social work. We come from international studies, and we also have a number of lawyers that are participating. So we really bring a wealth of not just experience, but a lot of different backgrounds. And then we all have to live or work in Palo Alto. We have to take a 40-hour training session, which is wonderful. And we're appointed for 2 years by the Human Relations Commission. And we always have ongoing mediation training, not only with our program, but we combine with Mountain View. And we have a joint training in the spring. And we also are skilled in, and we'll talk about this a little more when we talk about the cases, about being neutral, being empathetic, really listening to someone. Maybe that's the first time they've really had someone listen to them about an issue, and really encouraging them to find some common ground. And I like the last one here, learning to be calm, not just us, but learning to have people in the room be calm and provide a supportive environment to have that happen. And then I think what's really interesting, conflict has such a loaded definition. We always look at it as negative. And as mediators, we think conflict is a part of life. And I think it's how you address conflict. So as mediators, our goal is to have them come face to face, be supportive, make it confidential. It's very important when they're in the room that it's confidential. And also, they're going to reach the agreement together. Whereas if you're on the other side, if you have a conflict and you don't go through mediation, you might go to the court, which is much more adversarial, and also the judge usually imposes what the decision's going to be, and it's a lot more stressful for the people going through it.
Just a quick review of our process. So when somebody has a concern or a dispute or wants information, they call Project Sentinel, and we have a case manager there who does all the case intake for us. She makes the determination whether it's just a question that can be easily answered or whether it's something that should be passed on to the mediation panel. So if it's determined that the case would benefit from mediation, then an email is sent out to the panel of mediators with a very brief outline of the case and asking for volunteers. Somebody is then assigned, we call that person the case developer, and then they reach out to initially the person that had called in to open the case. And then secondly, and we hope we would get a response from the second party to the other person that's involved in the dispute. A decision is made as to whether the case should be mediated or conciliated. Mediation is an in-person meeting. We always used to do it actually physically in person, which is still the preferred method. However, since COVID, we started using Zoom to do our mediations, and in fact, it worked pretty well. What we've lost is the impact of feeling the emotion in the room. But it is interesting that it is at least getting the parties together so they can directly talk to the other person with the mediator there to facilitate the discussion. Sometimes the dispute has got to a point where the parties don't feel comfortable speaking to each other directly. The other part of that is in a landlord-tenant dispute, often so to back up a little bit, in mediation, what we try to do is repair a relationship that's broken. In some of the landlord-tenant cases that we see, generally it's a dispute about something specific, like a security deposit, for example, that hasn't been returned, and the tenant has perhaps already moved out. So there isn't a lot of work to be done to repair the relationship. So what we use then is a process called conciliation, where we speak to both parties separately on the phone to see whether we can sort of use shuttle diplomacy, going backwards and forwards between the two, to see whether we can help them come to an agreement. So the types of cases that we mediate are neighbor-neighbor and landlord-tenant. Now, it's interesting to me that since I've been on the panel, when I first joined 20 years ago, the majority of the cases that we were working with were neighbor-neighbor. So fences, your bushes are leaning over my driveway, or the roots from your tree have come under the fence and are lifting up my patio, or you're parking in front of my driveway, things like that. It's changed dramatically in the last few years, and I think particularly since COVID. So now the majority of the cases that we're working with are landlord-tenants. So rent increases, security deposits, like I said, repairs that haven't been done. So it's very interesting, and we very rarely see fence cases anymore, which is interesting because way back then it was, oh no, not another fence. But anyway, as I say, things have changed, and most of what the cases now do tend to be landlord-tenant.
So I'll speak to a bit the rate of activity in the program. And just to flesh out a little bit, Project Sentinel is a comprehensive housing services organization of which we have, within which we have 3 departments. One is the Tenant Landlord Dispute Resolution Program, and that's what houses the PAMP program. And we have a case manager who is trained in mediation through the 40-hour certificate mediation training, and who otherwise is providing information and referral and general counseling around different issues in the landlord-tenant. Generally, it is landlord-tenant arena where people just have all kinds of questions, and it is more or less 2/3 tenants who call, 1/3 landlords who call. Just to give you a little bit of a sense for that, it's not only tenants, and we are on pace, on average, to have about 250 calls, inquiries, emails a year. It breaks out in various different ways, you can see in the diagram. But on average, these are averages, so we have about 200 where the party is given some kind of information, counseling, advice, and referral. Not so much advice, legal advice, but just, there's this option, that option. And that's the funnel from which it's later determined whether mediation would be appropriate or the requesting party is interested in moving forward with it. We have about 50 cases we open a year. That translates out to almost even in terms of mediation and conciliation. We do tend to do a little bit more conciliation these days. Again, just different trends that seem to be showing up. Next slide is our program statistics from last year, the fiscal year 24-25. We have our goals there on the right and the various activities and our outcomes. So, generally speaking, again, we had unduplicated clients, or as we call them, or callers. We try to serve at least 200 a year, and last year it was 283. Same thing for the number of requests for counseling, information, and referral. That's, edging up toward 200. And then the number of mediations or case developer, anything assigned to a mediator was 48 last year. Our goal, just missing the goal of 50. So this year, however, the next slide is our current level of activity July through October, just to give you a sense of the pacing and where we are. So in the first 4 months, we've already had 100, or just over 100 calls, and you'll see the breakdown for how those 101 calls were handled. There were six of those were voicemails that, we returned the call. 50 of the calls were information referral. 45 cases, and I want to be clear here that cases includes when Project Sentinel is doing extensive counseling with somebody. So they first have some initial questions, they might send us their lease, they might all kinds of other things, and it's 2 or 3 follow-ups. And then 18 of those, however, were assigned to a mediator on the panel for case development. And again, case development starts to get at the real issues. The mediators become acquainted with the parties. And so far, we've had, of the 18 that were assigned, you see the statistics here, one case was resolved just by the back and forth through the counseling. 6 were resolved via conciliation. 7 were unresolved. Now, sometimes that happens because you can't get agreement with the other party, or the requesting party decides to pull out, decides to maybe handle it on their own. We always think that their touch with us helps them navigate and empower them to perhaps move forward on their own. And then we currently have four cases pending for conciliation mediation.
Okay, we're not going to throw any more numbers at you. Whoops. We're not going to throw any more numbers at you. We thought we'd give you some flavor of some of the cases we actually do. And I think it's important to know that each case is unique, even though we have many fence cases, it's not about the fence, you'll find out. It's about something completely different. And so what we thought we'd do is try and provide you some of the strategies we use to have a successful mediation or conciliation. And all of the ones we're going to talk about, examples, haven't all been successful, but I think it's one thing to remember as a mediator, it's not just about the issue. One of our goals is to really build community and improve communications, because some of our neighbors to neighbors, they've lived there 10 years and they don't even know their names. So, there are many goals for the mediation. So let's start with the first one, creating a safe and supportive environment. This sort of sounds like, okay, we use the rooms at our libraries now, or we use the Sobrato Center. And so we have really nice space, actually, where we can meet for 3 hours, 2 hours, whatever it takes. But what's interesting is, as I said, each mediation is unique. In these two cases, the mediators went way above what they were supposed to do so we could have the mediation. So one case was a woman, it was between a tenant and a landlord, and the woman, the tenant, had a mild case of agoraphobia, meaning she can't go out into the open spaces. So we can't have her go to Sobrato or the library. So what our mediators did was they had a mediation, and she set up her backyard. And they met in the backyard, and she was willing to come out. And for 3 hours, they had a mediation there with the landlord and the tenant and the mediators. Another one, a woman had a suppressed immune system. So she actually couldn't go out to open spaces and public spaces. So what the mediators did was they stayed on her front porch, and she was in the house, and they talked to her through her screen door. So really talking about a lot of the mediators, they've been doing it for 20 years, 25 years, they really try and create an environment where the tenant and the landlord or neighbor to neighbors can be heard. And in terms of just creating a safe and supportive environment, I just want to say, we always think the landlords get the bad rap. In these two examples, the landlords went above and beyond. They came, they really tried to accommodate the tenant so they could meet their goal. So the next one is, as I said earlier, it's not about the fence. And so this one, providing emotional support without losing balance. I did one, it was between neighbor and neighbor, and it was about a fence. But what was interesting is we had the mediation in person, and one of the parties, they both spoke Mandarin, and we had an interpreter there, but one of the women, the neighbors, it wasn't about the fence so much. She felt that her neighbor with the fence had disrespected her, had verbally abused her, had really not considered any part of her decision-making in trying to repair the fence. And so what happened was she just broke down. So it was very cathartic, it was very emotional, and basically the fence, we came up with a solution, but what happened is in a mediation, usually the two parties sit there and they talk to the mediators. At the end of this, the two neighbors were talking to each other in their language. And so even though the fence was addressed, we had taken a step that the relationship between the two neighbors was hopefully going to be repaired. And then Jill's going to do the next couple.
So this was a landlord-tenant case where the tenant had moved out and had not received his security deposit back within the required 21 days. He was extremely upset about this. He knew what the civil code is related to having security deposit returned. And he had been bombarding the owner with texts demanding the security deposit back. The owner had her reasons for not returning it within the 21 days, and one of which was that she appeared not to know where to send it to. So As I said, we prefer mediation in person. This was a landlord-tenant. It clearly could only be conciliated. The tenant was willing to, the landlord was willing, the owner was willing to mediate via Zoom. The tenant would not have anything to do with that at all. So it was a conciliation. Both parties had discovered my phone number, so this soon sort of became conciliation by text. Now, one thing we learn when we do our training is that it's not our dispute, so we shouldn't get too emotionally involved. But I do feel once I've been assigned a case, I feel ownership for the case to move it forward in the best way that I possibly can. And so when I started getting the texts, I felt obliged to immediately reword what was being asked for, call the whichever one needed to hear the latest request. And it didn't matter. I felt, I wasn't doing normal business hours, so I would call, people at weekends, in the evenings. They were always surprised that I was doing this, but I just felt obliged to try and move it forward since it had become so very emotionally upsetting, particularly for the owner. And one day she called me from outside Home Depot in tears. And that was quite challenging to try and sort of talk her through that. So I think flexibility, patience, persistence, eventually it's worth the time investment when you find out that they have moved off from their very, very opposing positions and are willing to work together to come to some agreement on the dispute. So supporting our diverse community. This is somewhat anecdotal, but I think it's fair to say that since I've been with the program, the demographics in our community have changed dramatically. We now work with many people from very diverse backgrounds and from diverse communities. And it's our job to be culturally aware of this, not only in communication styles, but also in how people from different communities and cultures communicate with each other. It can be intimidating for a party in a dispute if the person that, say, the landlord is shouting at them, not because the landlord necessarily wants to shout, it's just the way they've been brought up to communicate. So it's something that we have to be aware of and we have to manage. We're also seeing many more requests now for interpreters, and it's important that if the mediation is going to be successful, that the parties are really understanding exactly what is being said, and the best way to do that is to have an interpreter there that can speak in the native tongue. Sometimes the parties will bring a family member. There's pluses and minuses to this. The pluses are that it's somebody that they really trust. The minus is that the person usually is fully aware of the dispute and then can move out of their role of interpreting to actually being part of the discussion. Project Sentinel has a very good service whereby we call an 800 number and then say request a Mandarin speaker, and somebody somewhere in the world immediately picks up the phone and we explain what we're looking for, and then they participate in the mediation with us. it works extremely well. So,
So one more, balancing power oops, I'm sorry. One more, balancing power relations within the mediation session. So what's interesting is we talked about a safe, supportive environment, but we also want an environment where the two parties feel equal, that they both have input into the decision. So in the tenant-landlord one, more often than not, it seems that the landlord seems to think he or she has, the power. So we have to create an environment where they're equal there as much as possible. But also, we've done a couple that talk about the workplace. So we've done one where there's a supervisor and an employee comes in. And that was really, really tough because it was them having a conflict, and the supervisor has literally, objectively, power over the employee. And so it was in person, and we tried to have it as equal as possible. We came up with I would say, an okay mediation agreement where they would learn to be respectful to each other. If the supervisor had concerns, they would go into a private office and talk to the employee. It was a very difficult outcome in the sense that they both had been sent there by their human resources department. They didn't want to be there. And so, again, we tried, and I'm assuming the communication improved, but we didn't address all that needed to be addressed. And so these are examples where I think most mediators, and I think Project Sentinel too, we really try and create some type of situation, whether it's mediation or conciliation, where we will have a successful outcome. We don't always do that, but I think we have a 75–80% success rate in terms of the cases we take. And so, Jill, you have the testimonials. We want to show you some of the positive comments.
well, I think you can probably read this for yourselves without me going through them, but mediation is hard work. It's tiring. And even if the parties don't come to an agreement, we give them the evaluation form. And it's rewarding to know that they appreciate our efforts and they appreciate the time. And I think more than anything, they also appreciate somebody listened to them. And so these are some of the comments from last year that we're proud of.
But also, I think there's a little bit of modesty here, because in fact, when the evaluations, we have evaluations and surveys with each of the mediations that take place, and they're overwhelmingly positive. Whenever there's feedback about something didn't work, of course, but we just see 4s and 5s across the board in terms of the satisfaction rate. So there is one in building community when you are able to bring people together in a guided conversation in some ways, not to mention a listening forum, it really brings out the satisfaction rate.
So we've described our program to you. I think you can see we're very proud of what we do. We really strive to create environments so everyone's supported. And a couple questions that come up, I think, every year is how can we raise awareness of PAMP in our community? I think our numbers are growing. Also, how are the HRC programs, initiatives, how you could use mediation, how we could collaborate more? I know this past year, Mary Kate was on our committee when we hired new mediators. It was wonderful to have someone with the city collaborate with us. And then also, are there some situations that we haven't thought of or reached out to? So those are questions for you to ponder. I don't know if you have answers, but we do think of them in terms of not only how we can increase our numbers, but maybe how we can look into different areas we haven't done. And then the last, we've provided you with a quick summary, but the last slide is where our website is. Project Sentinel's done an excellent job if you want to know more about the project and the program. And also they have a lot of resources there and also legal documents so you can learn about the new laws and the state rules and regulations. And I'd like to open it for questions.
Let me just start by saying thank you so much. What a really thoughtful presentation. It is really clear. I think that you guys have gone way above and beyond in the work that you do for multiple decades. That's incredible. What a fantastic resource you are for our community, especially for finding peaceful ways forward in one of the most contentious areas of our life here in the city, which is usually housing. So thank you so much. I will take questions from our fellow commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Barr.
Yes, this has been bringing something up for me. Several years ago, I did graduate work at Stanford, and organizational decision-making was one of the courses that I took. And there was a study that looked at what happens when you have two people who are negotiating something, and there are two potential outcomes. This person wins, and this person loses. That's a win-lose. Alternatively, there's another outcome, which is that this person gets some of what they want, and this person gets some of what they want. The interesting thing is, male negotiators were much more likely to negotiate for a win-lose, whereas female negotiators were much more likely to negotiate for a win-win. But then, if you have to interact with this person repeatedly over time, you get much more return if you did a win-win to begin with. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, do you notice a gender difference either in how people approach this idea of conciliation or negotiation?
My light's on. I don't know if it's just a gender issue. I think Jill really described well, culture plays a big role in how people negotiate and how comfortable they feel about it. Also in terms of, I know it sounds not so much like a component, gender or culture, but I think, at least from my experience, we didn't say this, we always co-mediate. So we always work with another mediator. People's background and experiences in terms of mediation play a big role in how they mediate. And so it's not one way. And I think what really keeps us on our toes is that we mediate with different people with different experiences, and we learn from them. So that's not a specific answer. It's more an observation from me.
I think to your point about sort of coming to the middle, that's often what we're aiming for, really. You know, people, we do say that you may not leave this having got all of what you want, but we hope that you will leave satisfied, so you will have got some of what you want and you can move forward. And I tell people, and sometimes it falls flat, that in England we have this expression about having a monkey or a sort of a rock on your shoulder, and I don't want you moving forward from this mediation with something on your shoulder all the time. I want you to feel that you've achieved something and you can live with the result.
I can add one thing. We've had parties come back multiple times, particularly with tenant landlords. They'll have one issue solved and they'll come back because they appreciated having sort of a neutral people there to help them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Few questions. First, how do people find out about you? So it's a great resource. I mean, you can avoid a lot of legal fees if you're able to solve these disputes. I wasn't aware of it. You know, we've had situations. So how do people find out about you? And second of all, is there ever a liability issue? Because you are dealing with issues that are legal sometimes, right?
No, actually, that's something that we didn't mention, and sorry about that. Mediators do not give legal advice. So if somebody wants to know their rights, then they can call Project Sentinel for advice. But many times in a mediation, we will be asked, or when we're doing case development, what's right or wrong, and we just have to say we do not give legal advice.
And Project Sentinel doesn't give legal advice either. So when we talk to folks about what are their rights and responsibilities under the rules that govern the landlord-tenant relationship, we're giving them information from the California, AB 1482, for example, the Tenant Protection Act. It says X, Y, Z if you have a situation where, A, B, C. So there's a lot of education and information that we provide, and also to the extent, too, of sometimes having to handhold or receive or otherwise manage the emotional impacts of what one can imagine is an incredibly intense, sometimes, or oftentimes, a very intense relationship between landlords and tenants, and it is about something sacred called one's home. So there's all kinds of other ways that we also respond to the community in that way too. So just briefly, that's when we say counseling, it's really about orienting people to the rules and the rights and the responsibilities as under the various statutory rules. In terms of how to find out about us, we are trying to be as inventive as possible all the time. We do some print ads, and like PA Weekly, but they can be expensive. We go into community and attend events. Sometimes Minka has let us know about different things, and we go table and set up. Sometimes our panelists come out with us. Then we have a social media and a website and all kinds of digital marketing that we do. But I think word of mouth technically is our number one. So once you've had exposure to the program, used it yourself, or know someone who had, you tend to recommend it, and people do come back. So that's the powerful recommendation.
So thank you so much for being here tonight. Before I was on the commission, I worked with renters in the city and referred many people to you. First, I'm going to start with just a recommendation of, I highly, highly recommend engaging with the local housing organizations as much as possible, because since coming on this commission, the scope of your work is so much broader than what I knew it was when I was working in housing. And especially, I really appreciate you acknowledging that power difference and how you address that, because I know that's the perception that many housing organizations have when referring people, is they're wary of that. They're like, we could refer them to mediation, but there is that power difference between tenants and landlords. Let's see, my next question is, you listed a lot of people that you refer to other services. Can you give me an example of the type of people, the type of situations you refer to other services?
Absolutely. So if we might be talking with a tenant who's having some kind of repair difficulties, or maybe it's a chronic problem that hasn't been addressed, and it turns out it's a code violation, and have they spoken with code enforcement, for example? And so we may say, something along the lines of, well, it might be interesting to get information, provide them that. That would be like a clear-cut kind of referral. But there are all kinds of different entities that we refer to, not only that are housing related, but then also could be related to someone's health because there's a toxin in the house, or different other things. So yeah, that information referral is a key component of what a lot of people call. They just don't know where to go, and it's just a question or two, and we can help them connect to the right resource. Yeah.
Awesome. The last year when you presented to us, I know we had a bit of a conversation around, we had a mediator present, and she was talking about determining if somebody has a bias and when is the appropriate case for them. And I was wondering, of your mediators, how many are renters, and what is that process of ooh, this might not be the best case for me, because I know you're dealing with a diverse population. Oh, sure. So first part of the question, how many of your mediators are renters?
I don't know that we know that. I would say the majority are not. What was the second question?
Second part question is, you've talked a lot about dealing with a diverse population, and I was wondering, how do you find the best mediator for the case, somebody who's like not going to have a bias with the case?
That's a tough question. Because when Project Sentinel gets the cases, they send out the case to all the mediators, all 16 of us, and, you know, if we're available, we volunteer. I don't think we've been as intentional in terms of asking, you know, who would be good for that case. I mean, it's something to ponder. I mean, we do it more on availability, but I do need to say, though, we do it sometimes on language, which would be.
And culture. But I will say that it's internal policing. The training for mediation is so intense about checking your bias. And so that's the self-check. And if you even are assigned and start to get into a mediation and discover you're having a bias, or you're getting, you know, this party's just really too much and annoying you, and this party you want to win or something, you know, I mean, things start to set up even during the process, then you accuse yourself. So that's, I think, the mechanism by which, because really the premise is anything can be, and a mediator can mediate with anyone because of that training and self-policing.
That's really good to hear.
I also want to add that we have monthly meetings, the mediators, and we talk about cases all the time. And some of us are very direct, and, you know, like they say, did you really say that? I said, yeah. So we really do the ongoing and supportive, I would almost say it's like a community. And we also, at least I do, because I'm newer, I can call up any of them and say, I'm having trouble. Like the one I talked about having the power relationships between the supervisor. We had a Zoom meeting, about 5 of us, and it was amazing ideas that came up that I hadn't even thought of. So we really support each other on an ongoing basis, which is very helpful.
That's extremely wonderful to hear, because I know how important that support is. And my final question is, I hear this from other cities all the time, is they wish they had a program like this, and I'm really excited to hear that you do a joint training with Mountain View. Do you have other cities reach out to you being like, we want this here?
Yes. So the sophistication, I will say, however, of the Palo Alto mediation program, Mountain View, is tops, is very high. But we also have a general panel, what we call a general panel of mediators, and they service Santa Clara County and San Mateo County, where we have activity as well. And we also run the court mediation program in Santa Clara County. So we have, I think, you know, 2 or 3 other programs where we are administering the rent stabilization unit, in the sense of providing the, you know, the case manager for the petition process, for the mediations to take place if the mediation doesn't work, for the arbitration. So we work also with arbitrators in a couple different programs as well. But yeah, we have a few definite dedicated cities with, you know, trying to do this. And we've just taken 2 new contracts, actually, it just occurred to me, where they're looking for that same conciliation piece as well.
Thank you so much. It's always refreshing to hear about the work that you do. But going back to a question that Commissioner Ansari asked, is there liability because the mediation you do is not binding? Is there liability to you as a group or to the city under which you sit? Is there anything that bites you?
I'll take that. So Project Sentinel has a general liability insurance policy for any volunteers doing work under our umbrella. So that's coverage, but it's the number of, I'm not sure what we would say, malpractice or negligence, against mediators is very, very rare. As just a population of professional activity, it's just very rare.
Thank you so much, because that makes me, my heart feel better, because the work you're doing is good work. And there's contentious people involved.
But I have to say, I don't know about you, Jill, but I must say, when I first call them, I am not a lawyer, I cannot give you legal advice. And then when we get in the mediation room, I repeat it again. And the mediation agreement we sign is not a legal document. So I'm very aware that I need to say this. Do you? It's something part of like, I'll be neutral, but I'm not a lawyer, so.
And there's a little bit of a difference between community mediation and mediation inside the litigation process that might be mandatory not mandatory, but ordered by a court or something. So just a slightly different model.
All right, well, ladies, it wouldn't be a meeting if I didn't throw in some sort of weird suggestion, so I thought of one. A very contentious neighbor-to-neighbor conflict that made its way to City Council a couple weeks ago, which are the challenges among our RV dwellers and their neighbors. And I do wonder if your services might be valuable in some of those conversations. And I don't expect you to have an answer to that right now, but maybe we could exchange an email or two and think about ways that there's, actually, Vice Chair and I met with a very, kind of an organizer for the RV community, and they're very concerned about being good neighbors. They know that there's a lot of stigma associated with their oversized vehicles and are working very hard to be good neighbors. And I wonder if letting them know that there's this resource when there is contention with them. We're scrambling as a city to figure out how we can actually house these folks and how we can enforce the traffic rules and all of that. But in the meantime, there's maybe some peacemaking that can be done between those communities. So I think
It's a good idea.
yeah, so maybe I'll reach out to you guys on a separate thread and we can think through or if nothing else, just letting the RV folks know, we have a mediation program. If there's a neighbor who's, maybe there's a way to mediate some of those conflicts. Not all of them, of course, but maybe there's a way of getting the sides together to talk neighbor to neighbor. And with that, thank you. Oh, yes, and let's look for public comments.
So if you're interested in making a public comment, please raise your hand now. No, there are no raised hands, Chair.
Yeah, but before we finish, I would like to say to Commissioner Ansari's question about how we are getting the word out. One small piece is, Mink and I are in human services, and we get a lot of phone calls, and I'd say easily more than half of the phone calls I receive are people looking for either advice or some sort of conflict resolution, again, with tenants and landlords. And also our planning department is they have this information and will give it out to the public. Because a lot of times people don't want to escalate. They don't want to go and, maybe submit a code enforcement violation. So it's really great, and it feels good as a public servant to be able to say, hey, we have this program, it's free and confidential, and even if they can't help you, they will refer you to someone who can, or yeah, they'll have
And
that
the,
information.
and the other thing I think didn't come up is our contract with Project Sentinel also includes that they are the administrator for a mandatory response program. So that is a municipal code that says that the landlord and the tenant, under certain circumstances for certain issues, must come together to be in conversation regarding the issue. Usually they just have to come to one meeting and listen to opening arguments, but I've heard for years that once people are in the room, they rarely leave. So that is an important thing that Project Sentinel does. Elena and I manage that contract. And they also are very aware of the all the new landlord-tenant ordinances that we have on the books. They've been called in when we've had conversations regarding the quasi-new rental registry program and so forth. And they also have a CDBG contract for fair housing. So they are well integrated into at least 2 city departments. And part of the outreach that they do is their staff comes out and tries to get a shift to talk to police officers or talk to, code enforcement, go to the libraries, et cetera, et cetera. But like with any program, you can talk to so many people. It's like, oh yeah, I've known about them and I saw them in blah, blah, blah. And then the same people will read the same publication. And sometimes when you're not looking for a service, you kind of glance over the ad that might be there.
And I just stuffed your wall over there with our brochures. It's English, Spanish, and Chinese.
Sound,
Sorry,
please.
we have 2 short final items, and they are both related to how we sponsor or support, sorry, we do not sponsor events, but we support events at the HRC. And I wanted to provide a little context for folks who may not have been on the commission when we created this format. But essentially, occasionally we get requests by local folks or by nonprofits, or in this case, it was another part of the city libraries, to support their events. And usually this doesn't mean any financial support. It simply means usually using our logo to say that the HRC supports this event. And it has a way of adding a bit of increases the status, I think, of the organization to have a city official commission sponsor these events. But there have been challenges in the past with the criteria that were being used. And so in order to increase the fairness and transparency, we wanted to make it more transparent what questions we would ask of organizations when they asked us for support, and to make it a part of the public process. And so this is our first time since we created this form, maybe a year ago. It's been a while since we created this form. It's been a while that we actually have gotten someone to fill out the form and request support, and it's the local libraries.
And it's a Know Your Rights.
That's a Know Your Rights event. And so let's start by just seeing if anyone has any questions or concerns about the event. We'll vote on it, and then I want to actually talk a little bit about the process.
Is that what she said?
Okay. Again. So we have a 2-step conversation on this one.
What's the timeline? Don't they have to apply?
Yes.
Earlier than
quite
this?
early. So she applied on October 11th.
Okay.
And this
And
was
we
the
didn't
first
see it.
meeting, this is the first meeting we've had since, so we've been able to
Yeah, so just so
discuss-
you know, Priya Murthy is
Yeah.
from the library, is on the call if you
Oh,
have
great.
questions.
Hi, Bri. And also for context, Priya Murthy helped us when we reached out to the libraries to do a Know Your Rights event in the spring. And so this is a very similar event. You can read through if you guys want to take a second to look through the form and see if you have any questions about it. Priya is here to answer those questions. Otherwise, we can, if we don't have questions, we can move to a vote on whether or not to support it. Any questions? I'll just give folks 30 more seconds, just in case there's anything in here.
I just want to say, that this is another example of the library continuing to do programs that are important
Yeah.
and timely to the
Yes.
community. The HRC did this a while ago with a partnership of the library, and as times continue to go on, I think you have a cycle of people that go to the programs
Yes.
and ones that never did, and I think that is the need that the library is meeting now, so I want to,
And unlike our event, which did not have a significant immigrant turnout, this one is being led by the Day Worker Center, and so I'm assuming in that case, like, we had significant turnout for our event, but I think this one may actually be a bit more relevant to the folks who are coming. So I am, thank you to the libraries for making that collaboration possible. All right, then maybe we move to vote?
Yeah, let's vote, but quick
Oh,
question.
yeah, sorry.
Is the Day Worker Center, how safe are they going to this event?
That's a question for Priya. Priya, do you have a
Priya?
question? Yeah, how would you answer?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for considering our request, and we've really appreciated working with the Human Relations Commission on other programming that you all have led and providing support for that. In terms of the question about, is the question about are the folks who are affiliated with the Day Worker Center, would they feel safe and comfortable coming? Can I just to clarify?
That's, how safe will they feel coming? And how safe will they be? And how widely publicized it? I'd hate to have an event that becomes a nice visitation.
Right. I understand. And yes, no, completely. I understand. Well, I will say when we have been in discussion with the Day Worker Center, they did not express a concern about having it hosted at the library. And they work directly with the communities who are, kind of at the front lines of what's going on right now. So, from what they conveyed to us, they see the library as a trusted space. In terms of, has it been publicized? We have posted it, within our branches. We've done kind of targeted outreach. So we've reached out to different ESL programs that are in the area, reached out to the DLACs and the ELACs in the area as well. And so we're hoping to reach community members rather than, others. And I'm not sure if that helps ease the concern. But the other thing I would say is that we have hosted another Know Your Rights presentation and another immigration related program here at the library just this year. And we haven't had any issues come up there. Our staff are ready that if something were to take place that would cause a disturbance or would violate our policy, then we would handle that to make sure that folks are safe.
It wouldn't change my support or my vote in favor of working with you. I just figured we had to ask the hard questions.
No, I appreciate that.
All right, let's, wait, should we take public question comment
an
first?
action item you have to.
Yep.
So does anybody have any public comment on this matter? Please raise your hand. There are no raised hands, Chair.
All right, great. Then let's move to a vote. Commissioner Ansari?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. You'll need to have someone, make the move and then, yeah, make the motion.
I'll make a motion.
All right. All right, I think Commissioner Kraus.
Whatever.
Whoever, okay, Commissioner Kraus? Okay, well,
I'll move.
okay, Commissioner Kazi moves, seconded by Commissioner Kraus, or Vice Chair Kraus. Yeah, sorry, we need to vote again. We forgot to say what we were voting on.
Forgot to move.
I love that you are like more on top of the process. You haven't done this before. Yes. Now
Taking
we're ready.
notes, taking notes.
Now we're ready. Now we're ready. So now we can move to the vote. Commissioner Ansari.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kraus. Aye. Commissioner Barr.
Aye.
Commissioner Kazi.
Aye.
Commissioner Stimler. Aye. Great. The next one,
Thank you, Priya, so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
we're going to talk about the process of this form. So if you're interested in having anything feedback, having been the only person who's ever used this form, you may want to hang tight for 5 minutes.
Sound, please.
Sorry, I don't know why I turned that off. Priya actually reached out, so we're now moving to the 5th and final action item for today. Priya had actually reached out to us about 2 other events, but because they were happening before our next commission hearing, we didn't have time for her to fill out the form and for it to get reviewed by us in advance. And so in some ways, this form, although I do like the transparency and fairness, which is why I proposed it in the first place a while back, it was not intended to get in the way of city-to-city co-sponsorships. And so as we were going through this with the libraries, I thought maybe we should reconsider whether we want to go back to just having the chair and vice chair vote on support for city events, if there isn't time in advance. So let's put a motion up, Elena? And I apologize, sorry.
Could I get some clarity?
Okay, waiting.
Yeah, if you could provide time for discussion.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Chair, sorry, I'm just trying to understand. So the libraries reached out with
Yeah,
what
so
was the event that they
Priya's
reached
still
out?
here. No, shoot, okay.
Okay.
She had reached out with,
She
no, she
is.
is.
I'm here, I'm sorry.
Can you say what the other 2 events were that we couldn't support for you? Because remember you had reached out and we didn't have, the timing was off, and so our meetings didn't happen before the events.
Yes, I believe it was another Know Your Rights presentation we had done with Asian Law Alliance. I'll have to check the dates, but that was one that happened earlier this year. And then we also held an immigration rapid responder training by the Santa Clara County Rapid Response Network. And I believe those were the 2 events that we had inquired about.
And just so I understand, the problem was they weren't getting to us soon enough?
Yeah, they weren't, so we need at least 6 weeks of notice so that we can.
Well, and also the problem was that there wasn't a process for city folks to come to ask the HRC for support of their events. So they kind of were put into this process, but that's up to, as with anything, what the chair suggested, it's up to the commission to give comment.
Okay, so we're thinking maybe, so if the libraries want to come to us, or if another department wants to come,
Right.
they can, email us directly, but if I'm at a community organization and I want to reach out to the HRC, I have to go through this form.
Yeah.
That is,
City events should be the prerogative of the chair
Sound,
and the
please.
vice chair.
microphone, please. Thank you.
Okay.
And sorry, everybody, this is the actual process is noted on this here, so if you might want to be just referring to
Well,
that.
should we do a motion, so it's
Sure.
formal? Let's do a motion that, Helena, that when it's a city-to-city event, that they can come directly to the chair and the vice chair, regardless of the time frame.
And I would just add that the vice chair and chair can defer to the full commission if they would like to.
Exactly.
But if, in this case where it's like, it just felt weird that like the city is coming to us asking for us to support a city event, and we had to be like, oh, you don't have 6 weeks, sorry. And so that, it just seems like there should be maybe a fast track for city-to-city events is basically what we're
Well,
suggesting.
given the nature of
Yeah.
the pace of things are moving right now,
Yep.
we should be able to respond in a more timely fashion.
Yeah.
I would say to either my position or Elena's position, who will be in touch with the chair and the vice chair.
Yeah, and can be, yeah,
City departments won't know to get in touch with, so if they, can directly, that it would be to the human services manager or the human services, or just staff, you could just make it vague,
Yeah.
staff to the human relations.
and approved by the chair and vice chair.
Yeah, you can refer it.
To human services staff or something like that. Who will in turn,
As the human services staff for, shoot. And can be approved by the chair and vice chair.
or brought to the full commission at their
Yes,
discretion.
or brought to the full commission at their discretion.
I'll make a motion.
No, this,
I would second that myself.
I wrote this. Did you do this, or I did that?
Do what,
The motion.
You started at the beginning, and then the conversation just kept on going, and then Commissioner Causey jumped in.
I got the last one, you can take this one.
yeah, just let's split the difference. We'll make this one
Whatever you want.
Commissioner Kraus, Vice Chair Kraus.
Just didn't think I'd have
All right.
a forgetful moment.
No, you did not. All right. In that case, shall we move, our folks have any questions or thoughts before we move to a vote? Oh, public opinion, public comment?
Yes, so let me look.
Or Priya, if you have anything you'd like to say? No, okay.
Does anyone have public comment on this motion? No comments, Chair.
Okay, great. Then we'll move to a vote. Commissioner Ansari?
Aye.
Commissioner Kraus? Vice Chair Kraus? Commissioner Barr?
Aye.
Commissioner Causey?
Aye.
Commissioner Simler? Aye. Great, and with that, city official reports. Do we have any commissioner reports or liaison reports? No, I don't think we have any reports. All right, just a heads up on future announcements and meetings. We are going to be having a meeting in December. And at that meeting, we will hold elections. I myself am not running, or will not put myself up for reelection to chair, so we felt confident bumping it by a month so that our newest commissioner could join us and make an informed decision on that question. And then after the December meeting, in the new year, we will have a retreat that will be led by our new chair and vice chair. But before, so But we will talk a little bit at our December meeting about what we have achieved this year, walk through the work plan and sort of review it, so that we have a good sense of sort of what we've done in the past year and use that as consideration as we plan for the retreat in January. And I will remain chair during that discussion. So we'll first have the discussion about our achievements for the year, and then we will have the election, and after the election, the new chair will proceed with any further agenda items. All right, and with that, all right, then we shall adjourn.
Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.